Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're about to plunge into a stack of source material shared by you, our listener, exploring the incredible journey of a single individual who seems to, well, defy categorization.
Yeah, it's quite something.
We're talking about a naval architect who built an international business empire, a filmmaker with Oscar shortlistings, a poet, a Guinness World Record holder, and yes, someone even referred to as Sir by an Italian patriarch from a 13th century monastery.
It's quite the resume, isn't it? And the sources you've given us offer this really fascinating look at how one person navigates such wildly different fields, starting surprisingly from what he actually calls a wrong career design.
Right.
So our mission really is to unpack this journey, figure out how he built success from these, unexpected beginnings, and extract the core lessons from his experiences in shipping, film, business, life itself.
And we're your guides on this, helping you find the most important insights and those truly surprising facts. And speaking of surprising facts, let's kick off with that Sir title. Because when you hear Sir, you usually think royalty, maybe.
Yeah, British knighthood or something.
Exactly.
Right.
Not a monastery.
Right. It's definitely unusual. The source clarifies it wasn't the Pope himself, but given by Italian Partite Guffa, which is tied to a 13th century monastery. Apparently, knighthoods have historically been given by Christian monasteries. In this case, it was awarded specifically for his environmental protection work, things like his company's green ship conversions and the documentaries he's produced highlighting environmental issues. So yeah, a unique recognition for sure.
Okay, let's rewind then. Start at the beginning of this really unconventional path. He ended up as a naval architect, but it sounds like that wasn't exactly the master plan from day one.
No, not at all. He describes himself as a victim of wrong career design, which is quite a phrase.
It is.
Growing up, his real passion, apparently from the age of 10, was movies, art, directing school dramas, that sort of thing.
So he had this artistic spark really early on.
Absolutely. He talks about this vivid memory, like 16 or 17, skipping classes just to watch the shooting of India's first 3D movie, My Dear Kutechathan.
Wow.
That fascination with filmmaking was clearly a defining moment for him.
But his family was steeped in academics. Parents, brother, sister, all teachers, you said.
Yeah.
Was there pressure to follow a more, traditional path?
Oh, huge pressure. After graduating in naval architecture in 1990, when all his classmates were getting standard jobs, he wanted to jump straight into the film industry.
But the family.
Yeah, the family expectation was clear. Get a stable job, settle down, the usual.
So how did he reconcile that pressure with this obvious passion?
Well, he came up with a pretty strategic workaround, actually. He decided to join the Merchant Navy.
The Merchant Navy. As a naval architect, how did that connect to making movies? That seems like a detour.
Ah, that's the clever part. Merchant Navy roles often involve 6 months at sea, then 6 months off.
Right, the rotation.
Exactly. His thinking was that those 6 months off would be his window, his time to actually pursue filmmaking. It was a detour, yes, but one designed to ultimately lead back to his dream.
A calculated risk, then. But even that detour had its immediate hurdles, didn't it? Getting started.
Oh, it did. Trying to get a job as a naval architect in the Merchant Navy in Mumbai was tough. His specific course wasn't approved by the Directorate General of Shipping for the marine engineering roles he was technically qualified for.
Bureaucracy.
Basically, he spent 3 frustrating months just hitting walls, no luck.
3 months of rejection right out of the gate. That's rough. How did he finally get his foot in the door?
It came down to persistence, really, and seizing an unexpected opportunity. He'd been trying to get in touch with Captain Cholera at Oyster Marine. Finally, Captain Cholera gave him a survey task, like a test. Inspect a floating crane barge someone wanted to insure for a huge amount, 8 crores, which was a lot of money back then. And this was his very first job. 0 experience.
Wow. So, faced with this task, how did he even approach it without knowing the ropes?
He got resourceful. He went to the site, saw foreman, and just started talking, The foreman gave him the lowdown. The barge was built from scrap. Only the paint was new. Total junk, basically. So he combined this, street knowledge with his actual naval architecture training, consulted some senior friends at Mazagon Dock, and he quickly figured out the real value was less than 2 crores. Way less.
And he delivered this detailed report.
That very evening, Captain Cholera was so impressed by the speed and the accuracy of the report, he paid him 800 rupees right there on the spot.
Nice.
And offered him a job on a ship leaving the next morning.
Incredible. From 3 months of waiting to a job in an hour. Just because he did the work and showed what he could do.
Exactly. It's a powerful lesson, isn't it? Demonstrate value proactively, even when you lack formal experience.
Definitely. Okay, so he's got the job. What was that first experience at sea actually like?
Intense. That's the word. Intense.
Ah.
His first ship was a storage tanker, the Zaki Zain, anchored off Mumbai. He described life there as like a prison, couldn't even go ashore for months on end.
Wow. And you mentioned the sources call it a worst managed ship. What does that mean in practice?
Yeah. See, this was an era when the whole ship management concept was pretty new, and this particular company just wasn't doing a great job. Maintenance was poor, things were constantly breaking down.
Oh.
Engineers and captains were often short-term hires, so there wasn't much continuity.
That sounds awful, frankly.
Yeah.
But paradoxically, the source suggests it was actually a great learning experience. How does that work?
That's the key insight here, yeah. Because things were constantly breaking, equipment was always being opened up, taken apart, repaired. He saw systems being worked on daily in a way that, engineers on well-maintained ships might see once in 20 years, if they're lucky.
So trial by fire,
Ah.
literally sometimes.
Almost literally. He crammed this massive amount of practical learning into just 6 months.
But learning under those kinds of conditions sounds incredibly dangerous.
Oh, it absolutely was. In just those 6 months, the sources detail some really scary incidents. A CO2 release during a boiler fire that flooded the engine room.
Whoa.
And 3 fires in total on the ship.
3 fires in 6 months. That's terrifying. And the third fire was particularly tragic.
Yeah. It happened just 10 days before his contract was up. Can you believe it? 10 days from going home.
Oh, no.
It started in the accommodation area right near the engine room, apparently caused by fumes from the oil field getting in through open portholes because the AC wasn't working, typical, and then ignited by someone smoking.
Just a chain reaction of neglect. And his survival in that fire is directly linked back to his specific training.
That's a crucial detail, yeah. As a naval architect, he was trained in ship design, including all the emergency escapes. As a junior engineer doing his rounds, he regularly passed the emergency escape near the fridge and the steering gear room. He knew exactly where it was.
While maybe others weren't as aware or didn't think about it.
He says most people on board just didn't pay attention to them. So, when the fire blocked the main escape route, the funnel access, which was the one his chief and third engineers attempted and sadly didn't survive,
Oh, God.
he knew about the alternative.
Walk us through that escape. It sounds absolutely harrowing.
Yeah, it really does. Realizing the main path was completely impassable, blocked by fire, his only route was this smoky alleyway leading to the steering gear room escape hatch. He talks about needing a single breath.
Just one breath.
One breath to cover 20 steps and several turnings through thick, poisonous smoke. Then climbing a ladder, struggling to open the heavy hatch. The moment he reached fresh air and took that first gasp, he actually lost consciousness briefly from all the smoke he'd inhaled.
Just unbelievable. Pulled up to safety then. A true close call.
Exactly. He was pulled up, revived, and then immediately became the prime witness for the inquiries. He faced intense questioning for 3 days straight. Meanwhile, news of the fire reached his family back home, but with no way to communicate, they feared the worst. They were basically waiting for news of his body being found.
That experience must have been utterly life-altering.
Profoundly. He talks about it as getting a second life. It deeply impacted him, and, understandably, it put his film dreams on hold for a while. He just needed time to process it all, to just enjoy being alive.
So after surviving that, taking a well-deserved break, what was the next turn in his path? Did he go back to sea or decide shore life was safer?
Well, he was actually scheduled to join a foreign ship with a promotion after his 6-month break, but that got delayed. And then around the same time, his brother, the one who was a naval architect professor, was looking to leave teaching. He saw an ad for a marine surveyor job in Fujairah with a company called Fair Deal.
Okay, so his brother found an opportunity. How did that lead him to the job?
Right, this is another one of those strange twists. His brother needed a passport urgently for the job, which he didn't have. So to hold the position open while his brother applied, he gave the company his own passport as a guarantee.
He used his passport as collateral for his brother's job.
Yeah, and when his brother couldn't get the passport sorted out in time, the company pushed back, and he felt obligated, He felt he had to take the job himself rather than let them down after they'd held it based on his guarantee.
Wow. So he ended up taking a shore job, earning half of what he would have made sailing, but it meant stability. 12 months work, less risk. a different kind of design for his life, maybe forced by circumstance.
Right. A definite shift in trajectory, driven by circumstance and, I guess, a sense of responsibility to his brother and his word. And in that role at Fair Deal, he was actually instrumental in bringing new technology to the region, ultrasonic thickness gauging, UTG.
UTG.
It's basically using sound waves to precisely check the thickness of a ship's metal hull. Really crucial for safety inspections, especially on older ships. It was becoming a new requirement then, and he helped introduce it there.
Interesting. And life was also changing outside of work around this time, wasn't it?
Yeah, things were moving fast. On his first vacation from that Fujairah job, he went back to India and got married, so priorities naturally started shifting.
Sure.
He eventually moved from Fujairah, which he called a small village, to Dubai for better professional opportunities. He changed companies a couple of times, Fair Deal to inspect, then to SGS, which is like the world's largest inspection company. Part of that was apparently due to visa issues for his growing family.
Family visas, always a factor.
Right, and then he had twin daughters, which, cements those shifting priorities even further.
So he spent 6 years in Dubai, working his way up in these established companies. What prompted the leap from that kind of corporate stability to starting his own venture? That seems like a big jump.
It was a pivotal aha moment, really. It came after 6 years in Dubai. Remember, he arrived for that first shore job with just 50 dirhams in his pocket.
Right, you mentioned that.
6 years later, despite having a good job, traveling internationally, all that, he checked his pocket, metaphorically speaking, and realized his bank balance was still essentially that same 50 dirhams.
No way.
He had a family now, 2 more luggages, as he puts it, his wife and daughters, but no real savings to show for all that work.
Okay, that's a wake-up call. Time to take control of his financial destiny.
Exactly. The decision was made right there on Ajman Beach. He ordered a drink, grabbed a tissue paper, literally a tissue paper,
Classic startup story.
and planned out starting his own company. He figured he needed about 250,000 dirhams to get it off the ground in Sharjah for the first 6 months.
Planning a 250,000 dirham business on a
Yeah.
tissue paper. I love it. And how did the fundraising go for that? Was that another struggle?
This is another incredible detail, actually. While still sitting there at the hotel, he started making calls to banks about loans, to his brother, to friends offering their credit cards.
Hustling right from the start.
And he says in just 1 hour, he raised the needed capital.
An hour.
It's
That speaks volumes about the trust and the network he must have built through his work ethic, even if he didn't have personal savings himself.
It really does. And so, Aries was born. Named, apparently with his wife's astrological suggestion, on his birthday, March 28, 1998.
Nice touch.
And to give the venture his absolute undivided focus for those critical first 6 months, he made the incredibly tough decision to send his wife and young daughters back to India temporarily.
Wow, that's commitment. Starting a company on your birthday feels symbolic, auspicious even, but things didn't exactly unfold smoothly right after launching, did they?
Oh, not at all. Talk about bad timing. Within 1 week of launching Aries, disaster struck. The market completely collapsed.
A week? You're kidding.
Nope. The oil price absolutely tanked, went down from like $60 to $6 a barrel. Suddenly, there was, in his words, no money in the market, no job in the market. Everything he'd meticulously planned on that tissue paper was reversed, 180 degrees, almost overnight.
That's just devastating timing for a brand new business. How do you even begin to manage a crisis like that right out of the gate?
It was an intense fight for survival. He had to be everything, the only driver, the accountant, the marketer, the admin guy. He cut costs ruthlessly. He used his personal car as the company vehicle. His home became the staff accommodation.
He lived there with the staff.
Yeah, he lived in one room and the staff stayed in the others just to save money.
And his family was back in India during this initial phase.
Yes, for those first 6 months. When they returned, the financial situation was still so dire that they all lived together in just one room in their own home. And his wife, who was a classical dancer, started giving dance classes. She was earning about 800 dirhams a month from that. He says that seemingly small income was actually enough to run the family, which freed him up entirely to put every single ounce of energy into just keeping the business alive.
That's incredible family support and sacrifice right there. And personally, he wasn't drawing a salary during this whole time.
He didn't draw his first salary from Aries for 2 full years. The priority was always paying the staff, keeping lights on, essentially.
How did he keep the staff motivated and committed when cash flow was obviously so tight and the whole market was in free fall? That's a huge challenge.
He got innovative. He introduced a kind of virtual currency system within the company and a 50% profit sharing model.
50%.
Yeah. Even if the profit was just on paper initially because the market was so bad, it created this sense of ownership, of partnership, and built trust. Employees felt like they were in it together. And he notes this 50% profit sharing system actually continues to this day.
That's a powerful model for long-term employee loyalty, built in the toughest of times.
Definitely.
It sounds like those early years demanded immense personal sacrifice beyond just the financial.
They really did. He couldn't visit his family back in India for 3.5 years straight. And tragically, his father passed away during this time.
Oh, no.
And he couldn't attend the funeral because his passport was tied up with immigration procedures related to the business setup.
That's just heartbreaking. How did he process that? What did he learn from that incredibly painful experience?
He turned that personal loss into a core company policy. It's quite profound. Today, Aries has a specific system in place to ensure that if there's a family emergency for any employee, their tickets and arrangements are handled immediately, like instantly. Sometimes even before the employee has fully processed the news themselves.
Wow.
The goal is explicitly that no employee should ever face the kind of barrier he did in being there for their family during a critical time.
That's a powerful corrective action, isn't it? Designing compassion right into the corporate structure, born directly from personal loss. He also mentioned losing a lot of money early on due to procedural issues, something about invoicing.
Yes, another hard lesson learned about scaling up and dealing with big clients. Coming from SGS, where processes were very compartmentalized, he hadn't personally been trained in the nitty-gritty specifics of invoicing large corporations. So they do the survey work, submit the reports.
But the paperwork wasn't quite right.
Exactly. Invoices for big companies like, say, Dubai Dry Docks weren't always correctly supported by the official purchase orders, the POs, or the specific work certificates that needed to be signed on the ship itself.
So without that precise paperwork trail,
The ships would sail, the job files would get closed administratively, and Aries just couldn't collect payment for work they'd already completed. He estimates he lost more than his initial capital investment purely due to this ignorance of large-scale client invoicing procedures.
a massive painful loss, just due to a process gap. What was the turning point after dealing with that blow?
He realized they desperately needed a formal system, structure, process. He actually learned about the ISO system himself, intentionally avoiding consultants who he felt would just overcomplicate things and charge a fortune.
Took it on himself.
Yeah. He created his own management system based on ISO principles and implemented it around the 4th year of the company.
How did implementing that system change things for Aries?
It brought much-needed structure and professionalism. What started as a basic quality management system gradually evolved into what he calls an efficiency management system. This documented, systematized approach built trust, especially with major international companies who were just used to working with highly structured organizations. That, he says, was the real turning point for Aries to finally start growing significantly.
Interesting.
The key insight there, I think, is that structure and process, even if you have to learn and build it yourself from scratch, are absolutely essential for scaling past that initial chaotic bootstrapping phase.
Right. Systematization born from crisis and painful lessons was key to the business success. Meanwhile, that artistic passion he had from way back, the filmmaking dream, it wasn't forgotten amidst all this, was it?
No, not at all. It started bubbling up again around the year 2000, once the business was a bit more stable, past the initial survival struggles. He began organizing youth festivals in the Middle East.
Youth festivals?
Yeah.
How did that connect back to his business or his film interests? Seems a bit random.
Well, it served multiple purposes, actually. It definitely nurtured his connection to the arts, sure. But it was also a brilliant kind of organic way to train his own staff.
How so?
His employees would manage different stages and various aspects of the festivals, logistics, planning, execution. They were learning project management and teamwork in this fun, creative, hands-on environment outside the normal office routine.
Clever. And it helped him find talent, too. You mentioned that earlier.
Exactly. In 2004, they launched the Aries Talent Hunt. It was primarily a music album competition aimed at college students. Teams had to handle everything, shooting the video, composing the music, writing the songs.
The whole package.
Right. And the specific goal was to identify talent across the 22 different professional categories needed for filmmaking, directing, cinematography, editing, music, acting, everything.
And this talent hunt actually had a real impact on the film industry there.
According to the source, yeah, quite significantly. He says 74 colleges participated in that first competition alone, and it identified many of the people who are now considered the new generation filmmakers and artists working in the Malayalam film industry today. People like Niven Pauly and Alphonse Puthran, apparently.
Ah.
He became a mentor for these young talents, aiming to provide the kind of guidance and platform he wished he'd had when he was starting out.
So after nurturing others' talent, he finally decided it was time to actively pursue his own filmmaking dream in 2006.
Yes, that's when he took the plunge, enrolling in a diploma program from the Hollywood Film Institute.
And his project for that diploma wasn't a feature film right away. I thought that was the goal.
No, interestingly, it wasn't. His diploma project was actually to start a TV channel specifically for the shipping industry.
A TV channel for mariners.
Yeah. That became Marine Biz TV, launched in 2007. He describes it as the first TV channel for mariners. Initially, it was on satellite. Now it's mostly online, IPTV, YouTube. They have something like 20,000 hours of technical content. It served as this practical learning ground for him in producing content on a large scale, managing crews, schedules, budgets.
Like a film school, but with real-world industry content.
Kind of, yeah. And Marine Biz TV also helped build bridges within the maritime industry itself.
How did it do that?
Through the channel, they developed something called the International Maritime Club, or IMC. The idea was to create a platform for all the existing maritime organizations, unions, associations, classification societies, etc., to connect and collaborate. He says 200 different organizations joined within the first year, potentially making it the largest maritime organization globally, at least by that measure of member groups.
So all these steps, a talent hunt, the TV channel, the industry club, were kind of building blocks, gathering experience and connections towards the ultimate goal, making a movie.
That was always the dream, yeah. And not just any movie. He set this incredibly ambitious, almost audacious target to fulfill the failed dream of the legendary Indian filmmaker Satyajit Ray.
Satyajit Ray. The source mentions his Alien project. Tell us about that.
Yes. So Satyajit Ray is obviously this icon of Indian cinema, an ultimate filmmaker. Back in the 1960s, he worked on a project called Alien with Columbia Pictures for about 12 years. The goal was to make a Hollywood-level movie from India with real Oscar potential. But it ultimately fell apart, never got made. The source notes that Ray's Alien story is often compared to Spielberg's later film, E.T.
Interesting comparison.
So Sohan Roy decided his mission, his first feature film's mission, was to achieve that unrealized dream of Ray's.
Wow, that's a huge legacy to take on for your first feature.
Yeah.
How did he design his movie to try and meet this massive ambition?
He created this very specific, unique specification for it. It had to be a Hollywood format movie in terms of structure and potentially distribution, but with an Indian theme and crew. It was explicitly targeting Oscar distribution channels. He even set himself 99 unique targets for the project.
99 targets.
Yeah, covering everything. And he wanted it viewable from 9 different angles or perspectives, including a mariner's perspective. He actually managed to shoot scenes on a VLCC, a very large crude carrier ship, which he says was unprecedented even in Hollywood films at the time.
Technically ambitious too, I imagine.
Oh, very. He initially wanted to shoot the whole thing in stereoscopic 3D right there on the ship, but the 3D camera rigs back then were just too big and impractical for that environment.
Right.
So their solution, which was groundbreaking for India in 2010, was to shoot in standard 2D, but then scan the film at a very expensive 4K resolution, which you needed for a high-quality conversion, and then do a full 2D to 3D conversion in post-production. That process alone took about 1.5 years because the technology was so new, especially in India.
And financing the scale of ambition, where did the money come from?
This is where his business success, Aries Group, came directly into play. He invested his entire personal savings, $10 million, built up over 16 years of work.
$10 million on his first film.
His entire savings. And he makes a point of emphasizing his wife's full support, acknowledging that, half the money was effectively hers, and she agreed it should go towards pursuing this lifelong dream.
That's incredible trust and partnership. What was the subject of this $10 million bet?
He chose a really powerful and potentially sensitive subject. It was inspired by the world's largest man-made disaster, the 1975 Bangqiao Dam collapse in China, which killed something like 250,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And he connected this historical event to a pressing local issue back home, a 100-year-old, apparently leaking dam near his village in Kerala, the Mullaperiyar Dam. He says this dam is potentially 10 times more powerful than Bangkok and poses a huge risk to millions downstream. He'd actually made a documentary about the Mullaperiyar Dam situation first, which won about 23 international awards.
So that documentary subject then became his feature film, which was called Dam 999, released in 2011. But the sources describe a huge domestic controversy blowing up around it. What happened there?
Yeah, a massive firestorm is the word. Before the movie was even released somehow, visual effects footage showing the film's dam disaster climax sequence got leaked, and some media outlets apparently broadcast these VFX shots as if they were real news footage, showing the actual Mullaperiyar Dam cracking.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's terrible, and that caused panic and political fallout.
Exactly. It sparked absolute fear among the villagers living near the real dam and escalated incredibly quickly into this major political and social controversy between the states of Kerala and Tamil Nadu, who share the dam. It apparently stopped the Indian parliament, led to the Tamil Nadu border being physically closed for a month, and even resulted in shops being vandalized in both states. He describes it bleakly as a warlike situation.
And the movie, his $10 million dream project, was caught right in the middle of this firestorm.
Completely derailed. Despite the Supreme Court eventually ruling that the movie, having been censored, couldn't legally be banned, the state of Tamil Nadu effectively implemented an unofficial ban anyway.
How did they manage that?
Apparently, film industry bodies were used to pressure theaters not to show it, prevent posters from being put up. He says the movie was essentially massacred in its primary Indian market.
So internationally acclaimed, Oscar shortlistings, but blocked at home.
That's the painful paradox. The film was shown at 130 international film festivals. It received those 5 Oscar shortlistings in 3 different categories, a really significant international achievement for an Indian film. Yet in India, that unofficial ban basically continues to this day. It hasn't even been shown on satellite channels there. He ended up losing about $6 million personally on the project.
A huge financial blow and a dream kind of stifled in his own country. What's the takeaway from that really painful experience?
Well, the key insight, I think, is just how innovation and ambition, especially when tackling sensitive subjects, can face immense, sometimes seemingly irrational, resistance from entrenched political and social forces. But interestingly, he also notes that even a commercial failure like that can yield unexpected value. He actually sees Dam 999 as the best branding tool he's ever had globally. It opened doors and gave him recognition internationally that he might not have gotten otherwise.
An unexpected silver lining.
Exactly. And while he says he still makes movies, he now believes that the whole traditional model of filmmaking, the one Dam 999 represented, is now essentially over, primarily due to the rise of AI, which is a topic we should probably touch on later.
Definitely. Okay, so losing $6 million on one project is immense. But it sounds like he didn't let that experience crush his vision for the film industry itself. He moved on to something called Project Indiewood.
Not at all. If anything, the Dam 999 experience spurred him on. Particularly, it highlighted the really poor state of theater infrastructure in many parts of India, which couldn't even properly showcase his 3D film. That realization led directly to his next massive undertaking, Project Indiewood.
And what was the vision behind Indiewood? Sounds big.
Oh, it's huge. It's pitched as a $10 billion project aimed at completely revolutionizing the entire Indian film industry ecosystem.
$10 billion. Wow. What are the goals?
Several big ones. Upgrading thousands of theaters across India to proper international standards like 4K projection and good sound. Unifying all the diverse regional film industries, Bollywood, Collywood, Tollywood, Mollywood, under one national umbrella brand called Indiewood to promote collaboration. And creating integrated dubbing and subtitling facilities to make it much easier to export Indian films globally in multiple languages.
So trying to build a truly global Indian film powerhouse.
Exactly. He believes if it's successful, it could potentially make the Indian film industry 3 times the size of Hollywood in terms of output and reach.
That's a bold, almost audacious goal. And did he approach this with his typical hands-on, lead-by-example method?
Absolutely. Typical fashion. To demonstrate the potential, he took what he describes as one of the worst theaters in Trivandrum and within just 5 months transformed it into India's #1 dual 4K projection theater. It was apparently so impressive that S.S. Rajamouli, the director of those massive Bahubali films, created a special 4K print of his movie specifically to be shown there the first time a 4K print ran in India. He also organized this huge event, the Indiewood Film Carnival, to try and connect the Indian industry with global players.
He even used his engineering and business background to help theaters during the pandemic, didn't he?
Yeah, that's another interesting crossover. When theaters were shut down everywhere due to COVID, his team at Aries apparently invented and installed some kind of COVID-free ionizing equipment designed to kill the virus in the air within the auditoriums, helping them reopen safely when regulations allowed. They also focused heavily on exporting Indian films internationally during that period when domestic releases were difficult.
You mentioned AI earlier and his view that it's changing filmmaking. What's his broader perspective on artificial intelligence and its impact on his various industries?
He sees AI as something absolutely mandatory to learn. It's simply the future, no question in his mind. In naval architecture, his original field, he sees its primary impact as speeding up design processes, making things more efficient.
Okay, an efficiency tool there.
Right. But in the film industry, he sees a much more profound, almost disruptive impact. He believes AI is rapidly enabling individual creators to produce high-quality content writing, visuals, music, everything, to such an extent that the traditional, large-scale, very collaborative teamwork model of filmmaking is becoming less necessary, maybe even obsolete for certain types of projects.
That's a fascinating perspective, especially from someone who's worked so deeply in both those very different fields. Let's shift gears slightly and talk about his overarching philosophy. He uses this phrase, designing destiny. What does he mean by that?
Yeah, this seems really central to his whole way of thinking. He has this belief that destiny is decided by your karma, your actions, your work. But, crucially, he believes you can design your karma through intentional choices and actions. And if you can design your karma, therefore, you can design your destiny.
Yeah, interesting. So it's about agency and intentionality.
Exactly. And he sets happiness, not just profit or fame, but genuine happiness as the ultimate goal, both for individuals and for his organizations.
And how does he translate this idea of designing destiny into, daily practice? How does it become concrete?
Through intense discipline and meticulous planning, he has this concept he calls corporate meditation, which isn't about sitting cross-legged, apparently.
Right.
It means beyond your standard annual or monthly goals, you should plan 25 additional small jobs or tasks for each day, and you aim to finish all of them before you sleep. He also believes strongly in fixing any problem within 24 hours, no procrastination. And central to all of this is respecting time. He sees respecting time as the absolute key to discipline.
Makes sense.
And he even says it takes exactly 22 days to make respecting time a solid habit. Very specific.
He's also developed his own unique management system, you mentioned, FESM. How is that different from standard systems people might know, like ISO?
Right. FESM, Efficiency Improvement System Management. He describes it as much broader than something like ISO. He claims it actually encompasses about 100 different management systems or principles rolled into one comprehensive framework, with ISO being just one small component.
100 systems in one. That sounds complex. What's the goal?
The overall goal is to measure and systematically improve both individual employee efficiency and overall organizational efficiency. It's designed as a 5-year transformation process based on tracking around 200 specific parameters.
200 parameters. Can you give us a sense of what kinds of things it tracks beyond just standard business metrics like sales or productivity?
Yeah, he highlights 2 components particularly, self-management and finance management. Self-management isn't just about work tasks. It's about actively working to reduce your personal health bill, finding balance between body, mind, and karma through a healthy lifestyle, things like diet, exercise, avoiding stress with the ultimate goal of living without needing medicines.
Wow, that's quite holistic for a corporate system.
Yeah.
And finance management.
That focuses on fundamental financial discipline, principles he says he learned from his own parents who encouraged earning from childhood. The core ideas are save at least 10% of your income, no matter what. Learn to live comfortably on the remaining 90%, and crucially, never borrow money for personal consumption. Build wealth through saving and investment, not debt.
That emphasis on employee and family care we heard about earlier, the one stemming from his own experience missing his father's funeral, that's also a core part of this Aries culture, isn't it? Integrated into VLSM, perhaps.
Absolutely. The source details their what they call 360-degree HR system. It explicitly goes beyond just the employee to care for their immediate family, too. They provide pensions for employees' parents and even grandparents in some cases.
Pensions for parents, that's unusual.
Very. And they offer career design advice and mentoring specifically for employees' children. It's presented as a direct, systemic response to his personal experience, designed to prevent his employees from ever facing similar barriers or heartbreak. He's also extended this community focus outward to his own home village, working on projects to make it a model village. Things like creating local employment for women, promoting organic farming, and even building a community multiplex theater there.
It's a truly holistic vision, isn't it?
Yeah.
Connecting personal experience directly to corporate culture and then outward to community development. And speaking of discipline, he maintains this remarkable daily creative practice as well.
Yes, the poetry. He writes a poem apparently every single day. He's been doing this for over 2 years straight now, accumulating more than 2,710 poems. He's actually aiming for a world record.
A poem a day. How does he find the time, let alone the inspiration?
He sees it simply as a habit, a form of discipline, like anything else. He finds subjects in his daily life, observations, thoughts, and he even composes music for them sometimes. It's his personal example, he says, that even incredibly busy people can maintain consistent creative discipline if they make it a priority.
Beyond his existing ventures in shipping and film, what's a major focus for him right now? What's next?
A big one seems to be reforming education. His vision is to connect education much more directly with actual industry needs. He wants to help students identify their natural talents and passions much earlier on, maybe even in school, and then align their education pathway with suitable career paths right from the start.
Bridging that gap between academia and industry.
Exactly. He's involved with concepts like the Amory Industrial University, which is based on the idea that people can earn degrees, even doctorates, while actively working in industry, using their real-world professional experience and projects as the basis for their thesis or dissertation.
That sounds like a fundamental shift in how we think about higher education and lifelong learning. And amidst all these diverse pursuits, film, management philosophy, education reform, he also holds a Guinness World Record related back to his original field, naval architecture.
Yes, a really unique one. He designed a steel snake boat for the traditional Kerala boat races.
A steel snake boat. Aren't they always made of wood?
Traditionally, yes, huge logs of wood. His motivation was partly environmental, avoiding cutting down massive trees for each new boat, but also about addressing quality and consistency issues with the traditional wood construction. Of course, this also faced controversy from traditionalists.
I can imagine.
And even got an unofficial ban from some races initially. But the steel boat eventually found a purpose, apparently used now as a rental for events and even as a museum piece.
Interesting. And his original company, Aries Marine, the design firm born from that tissue paper plan, has reached a significant global milestone.
It has. He mentions it's now ranked as the world's #1 ship design firm, with branches in 30 countries. They hold a world record for something called green ship conversions, basically, retrofitting older ships to meet modern environmental standards. They've completed over 3,500 of those projects, focused on reducing maritime pollution.
Wow.
And he highlights their use of advanced tech, like using VR during the COVID pandemic for remote ship scanning and design work when travel was impossible. Still innovating.
Finally, he even incorporates sports into his management philosophy. Cricket.
He does. His company owns a team in that Kerala Cricket League, and he sees this as more than just entertainment or branding. For him, it's a practical training ground for leadership.
How so?
He notes that many of the division heads within Aries Group are actually former cricket captains. He believes the sport teaches crucial skills like time management under pressure, strategic thinking, teamwork, and importantly, health and safety awareness, all directly transferable to leading effectively in industry. It's just another example of how he integrates these seemingly disparate areas of life into a cohesive whole.
So looking back at everything we've unpacked from your sources today, I mean, from navigating a career path he didn't initially want to surviving a near-fatal disaster at sea, bootstrapping a company during a total market crash, trying to spark revolutions in huge industries like film and shipping design, developing these incredibly detailed management philosophies, and weaving in artistic passions like poetry and community development.
Yeah.
It's just an astonishingly broad and deep journey for one person.
It truly is, and the source material consistently seems to point back to these core principles behind it all. That idea of the power of intentionally designing your destiny through meticulous planning and consistent action, the critical importance he places on time and discipline in absolutely every area of life, the clear value he puts on continuous learning and adaptation, especially now with disruptive forces like AI, the potential he sees in comprehensive systems like his FESM for driving both personal and professional efficiency, and ultimately finding happiness as the underlying goal while making absolutely sure your passions are integrated into your life, not sidelined or saved for someday.
It definitely makes you pause and reflect on your own path, your own design, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, if you truly believe you can design your destiny, as he suggests, what kind of future are you designing for yourself tomorrow? And maybe more importantly, how will you begin building it? What's the first small step you'll take today?
Powerful questions to ponder as you finish this deep dive into the source material. We hope this conversation has given you some fresh perspectives and maybe some surprising insights to carry forward.